Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's District Administration Web Seminar, which is entitled A Nationwide Look at Career Readiness Trends in Middle and High Schools, which is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor, Naviance by Hobson's. Before we get started, I would like to share just a few housekeeping items with you. For technical support, please use the chat panel, which you can find on the right side of your screen. Then select on my name, which is Stephen Blackburn, and type your message if you're having any technical issues. If you don't have computer speakers, or maybe if you prefer to listen privately, please dial the phone number and access code that I'll be posting in the chat window in a few minutes. We will also be welcoming any questions any of you all have today with a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. To submit a question, all you have to do is use the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom right side of your screen, and send your questions to all panelists, which is the default option. If you don't see the chat or the Q&A panels, please look to the right side of your screen and click the expand triangle, which is located directly in front of the panel name to make sure you have access to it. Also, something really important to note, if you would like to access the web seminar at a later time, everyone who is registered and who is attending today will receive an email with a link to the slides, and an archive recording. Lastly, we have opened the chat today so that attendees can communicate with one another to facilitate conversations during the events. So you are all welcome and encouraged to converse with each other. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker today. We have Dr. Kim Opelt, who is the Director of Thought Leadership at Hobson. Hi, Dr. Opelt. It is an honor to have you with us.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much for allowing us to join you today.
Perfect.
All right, I will take it from here. I'm really excited, everyone, to share some of our latest insights at Hobson's, and we're so glad that you were able to join us. Just wanted to go through a little bit of an agenda before we get started, and it's definitely a packed one, but we will absolutely leave time for questions. So feel free to add them into the Q&A whenever you have them. Also, we want to encourage you to leave feedback. So Marla, my colleague, is going to drop a feedback form into the chat. And we want to encourage you to connect throughout the presentation. So feel free to add your thoughts and your experiences and any best practices that you might have along the way throughout the webinar. And so you can keep your eye on the chat, keep your eye on the presentation, and we'll allow each other to connect. So let's start with that right now. As I'm going through the agenda, feel free to add in to the chat where you're joining us from. We'd love to see where everyone's coming from. So our agenda today is just going to start with some key findings from our recent white paper, and as well as a couple of surveys that we've done. We're also going to dig into some career readiness trends that we've identified from Naviance, and then we're going to wrap up with some implications and activities. Before we start, though, I wanted to give a little bit of a brief overview of Naviance, since we have some on the line who may not be familiar. Naviance is a college career and life readiness platform that helps students discover their strengths and their interests. It helps them create actionable goals, and it also helps them find their best fit path after high school. As you can see here, Naviance supports over 13 million middle and high school students in over 13,000 schools throughout the United States. Over 40% of high school students in the US have access to Naviance, and it's used by more than 500,000 educators. Naviance is backed by the College Career and Life Readiness Framework, which is a research-directed guide to help educators ensure that students have the tools and they have the skill sets to make informed decisions and build a foundation to set and achieve their goals beyond high school graduation. The framework, as you can see here, lays out 6 different competencies that we feel that students need to prepare for life after high school. And that includes social emotional learning, interpersonal skills, academic skills, career knowledge, college knowledge, and transition skills. So really what it does is expand the definition of college and career readiness by incorporating some other skills into the mix. Each competency includes themes and activities, and as you can see here too, the framework has underlying themes of digital literacy, goal setting, and also financial literacy. And for more on the framework, we have a website and an assessment and a lot of materials. So Marla will share that link in the chat as well. And since we're talking about career readiness today, I wanted to just dig a little bit deeper into the career knowledge competency that is in the CCLR framework. As you can see here, career searches aren't the only thing that encompasses career knowledge. So students still need to understand who they are and what their interests are in order to start to begin their, to build their future pathway. The activities that can contribute to this include things like strengths assessment, interest inventories, goal setting, career interest assessments, and even defining pathways. So again, you can learn more about that by going to our website, but definitely, you know, career readiness and career knowledge is built on a foundation of students understanding who they are. Now, I mentioned briefly our CCLR assessment, and that is something that is on our website, and we ask educators to take this assessment just to see where they are in terms of delivering lessons related to the competencies in the CCLR framework. So if you take a look at the assessment here, and if we focus in on career knowledge, you'll see that that it's not the least delivered competency across the spectrum, but it definitely isn't delivered fully. So on average, our schools and districts and middle schools and high schools are delivering about just over 55% of the lessons or activities that should be delivered for career knowledge. If you'd like to take that assessment, feel free to head on over to that website after we're done. So today's paper, we're going to focus in on trends in CCLR 2020. So this focuses on the data that surrounds college, career, and life readiness activities across the United States. For this report, we dug into insights related to career trends, career pathway preferences, college applications and searches, and even scholarship trends. So we included also best practices and implications throughout the report related to college, career, and life readiness. And then all of the data in the report is based on trends that we've identified through Naviance. So we will be sending this as a follow-up to be able to download. So just a sneak peek into what we've seen in our report before we dig in too deep. But we've identified engineering, arts, and health sciences as the top 3 career clusters for 6 straight years. So not a lot of changes there. The college searches that we've identified that are the most popular amongst our Naviance students include test scores, location, campus surroundings, and college majors. And finally, we also saw that an increased focus on transition and social emotional skills has been linked to higher attendance in post-secondary institutions, and also it has been related to retention, higher retention in college. Here we go. So let's pause for a quick poll. Obviously, career planning activities are challenging right now, but I wanted to just set the stage and understand where you're coming from. So wanted to check on what delivery system you're in right now as far as your school setting. Are you 100% distance, hybrid, or in person? And we'll just give you a few seconds to respond, and then we'll be able to see the results. 2 more seconds. Okay. And Stephen, do you have the results of that? I'm not seeing them. I don't think I'm seeing them. We will work that out for the next poll, but no matter what, go ahead.
Yep, sorry about that. It was
Okay.
loading. I can unmute myself. Sorry about that.
No problem, no problem. So it looks like about 31% of you are in a hybrid setup and 28% in all online. So only a handful are are in full-time school. So definitely a lot of us are facing challenges. Even those who are back to quote unquote normal right now are facing a lot of obstacles when it comes to career planning and just working in general, I'm sure. So let's dig into some of the career readiness facts and figures. So I wanted to set the stage a little bit with talking about why career readiness is important. And obviously, when we're preparing students for the future, we want them to have much more than just a list of college majors. It's really important for students to get in-depth career readiness experience so they can develop the skills that they need to be prepared, competent members of the workforce. And students who are involved in career readiness and CTE experience are much more likely to graduate on time and less likely to drop out of school. Whenever I think about pathway planning, I love to tell the story about MSD Wayne out of Indiana. They have been really innovative in their delivery of CCLR activities, and one of their most very successful projects was implementing a brief advisory period every day during the week, which allowed students to be able to really build some close relationships with their advisor, who was also sometimes their teacher, but they kept that advisor for 4 years. And they were able to really dig into the skills that they needed to learn to make steps after high school. So they set goals, they were able to take those steps. And by doing this, MSD Wayne was not only able to increase their engagement in the school, but they were also able to increase their graduation rate. So I think it really goes to show that if students are interested in their future, they're just more likely to set and work toward those future goals. And as far as identifying trends, we asked our Naviance students about their post-high school plans. So as you can see here, about 2/3 of students told us that they had planned to attend a 4-year college right after high school. And then another 20% said that they were interested in attending a 2-year college. And you can see here that a majority of those saying that they would then transfer to a 4-year college. So we had some high aspirations when it came to college going cultures among our students. And we had some good planners too, I think, with those who had the foresight of thinking about going to a 2-year college and then transferring to a 4-year college. And this was across grades 6 through 12. When it came to the obstacles, we asked them that may come into play for their first choice pathway. So what might stop you from attending that 4-year college right away, or attending that community college right away? Students were worried about test scores and their GPA getting in the way, or just not being good enough. They were worried about paying for college or even making the wrong career choice. And then we also dug into our Naviance data to find some interesting career trends. So you can see here, we were able to dig back for about 6 years and check out what careers our students were saving in their portfolio. So it ended up being really, really stable. Over the top 6 years, we had 6 careers that kind of floated to the top. You'll see arts, audio, visual, or audio, video, technology, and communications was at the #1 spot for each of those years. Health sciences was a steady #2. Education and training at #3, and then #4 was human services for quite a while, and then that was switched out with STEM after this past year. And then again, #5 was law, public safety, corrections, and security. So I'm not sure if you're seeing that same thing in your school, but that's definitely the trend nationwide with our Naviance students. So let's take a look at our Naviance student poll. So we did a Naviance pathway survey with students, And we asked our students in grades 6 through 12 how they felt about their access to career learning opportunities at their school. And I just wanted to note that this is definitely a pre-COVID survey. So you can see here that over half of the students felt like they lacked career planning opportunities at their school. So they were craving more career opportunities. And I wanted to ask you on that note, what kind of opportunities you have at your school. So what opportunities do your students typically have on a normal year, on a non-2020 year? What kind of career activities have your students been engaged in? And go ahead and click those. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And as you do that, to set up the next question, well, actually, let's take a look at it.
Right now it's loading in about 11 seconds, so I should be posting that up soon.
Okay, sounds great. And I realize that you probably have other opportunities as well. So, so if you are not able to select multiple, or if you have others that aren't listed here, go ahead and pop those into the chat. All right, so it looks like, sorry, I just have to expand a little bit. So it looks like is it career fairs? What's number 2? What's B? I'm not able to see. But looks like there are quite a bit of opportunities that are related to guest speakers and career fairs. Looks like the top might be those career fairs. I also wanted to ask, what activities have you been able to do this fall with your students? So we can pop up the second poll too. So right now,
I'll get there momentarily.
So what kind of activities are you doing right now? And we'll dig a little bit more into this in a few minutes, but I was just curious as we turn our conversation to career planning and activities. Here we go. What opportunities do you do with your students now?
And you should all be able to choose multiple as well. I changed the
awesome.
This. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And again, if there's something in here that you're doing that is not in this list, feel free to pop that in the chat. We would love to see, especially what you're doing in a time of distance learning. Seeing a lot of things: career fairs, guest speakers, inventories, career research projects. Love that. Some people are using Naviance. That's great. Webinars. Good. Online courses that have CTE focus. This is great. One-on-one mentors. All right. Whenever we have those results, we can take a look too.
Here we go.
Great. All right. So it looks like guest speakers still are happening. Some career fairs are still happening out there, and even some internships. So I love that that things are still moving forward, even in a crazy time. So thanks for sharing, everyone. And feel free to keep chatting any other activities that you have in that chat box. So we asked when we did this pathways survey, again, this was pre-COVID, we asked students to list the activities that they have access to. So you can see here if you align, and with our overall poll results, it's definitely aligned with guest speakers and career fairs coming to the top. Also, they had access to internships and some job shadows. So schools are doing a great job out there when it comes to this access. We did ask them, though, if you remember, they desired some more career opportunities. So we asked them what they wished they had more access to. And you can see that internships was far and away the #1 desired item. Students were really interested in getting some hands-on experience with potential careers. You can see also with field trips and job shadows floating to the top. So students definitely are loving these opportunities that you're giving them, and even craving more. So another poll question, and sorry, I know that there are a lot of them, but we love to get to know everyone. But wanted to know, and we asked this question of some of our counselors in the field too. But how involved are your parents and guardians in CCLR related conversations this fall? So is it? I know it's hard to reach them, but just wanted to know how involved parents are at your school when it comes to CCLR related conversations. Right. Rarely, I'm seeing some in the chat, rarely involved. Very interesting. Whenever we have those.
Here they are.
And then, yeah, and so I think both ways I see. So we somewhat involved pops up to the top, extremely is at a minimum, and not at all is at 20%. Um, So I think, families, I was just having this conversation with someone, and families are, I think, in an odd spot right now when it comes to communication and being involved in the day to day. So it's interesting to see this, and it'll be, I can't wait to ask this question again once we're back at school full time to see how this has changed. We asked our students this. Actually, I asked grades 6 through 10 students this exact same question from the opposite way. So I said, do your parents and guardians discuss career planning with you? And 75% of them said yes. So I think this definitely shows a yearning for for parents to get involved. And this is a survey that we just did in the past couple of weeks. Um, so definitely these conversations are happening at home, and I think that it also demonstrates that parents can, even though they might not seem involved right now, they can definitely become your partner in this quest. So we surveyed, as I mentioned, educators this month as well, and it might not be a surprise to you, and it aligns with the results that we just showed. But how has COVID impacted career planning? And 80% of the respondents in that survey, educators, mostly school counselors, said that it has definitely had a negative impact. And 20% said that had no impact. And no one responded that has had a positive impact. So we'll read into that what we may, but when we dig a little deeper into it, I wanted to find out if counselors are delivering more or fewer lessons this fall related to career planning. So you can see here that the 63% said that they were doing fewer lessons. So obviously, this is no fault of our counselors who are working hard in the field and pivoting on a dime to be able to take care of the needs of the students remotely, but definitely students are not, getting as much career planning time as they would have when they're in a face-to-face environment. I also asked our educators what activities they did in 2019, in the 2019-2020 school year, and then again, what they've been doing or what they plan on doing this year. So you can see here that it's not a surprising drop in activities, but there's definitely a drop, and even more so in the in-person activities like career fairs and guest speakers and job shadows. And then what's most concerning, I think, to me, is the drop, the amount of drops in each category. So every category has a pretty significant drop, even if it is something that can be delivered online, like the assessments and the searches and resume writing and things like that. So they are definitely being sidelined for the time being. But if you want to, add anything into the chat as far as your response to this, we'd love to hear what you feel the impact of COVID on career planning for you has been, and if you've found anything that that has worked and been helpful. I wanted to highlight another school district who is doing a great job in when it comes to career planning and CTE, and that's Township High School District 214 in Illinois, and they have kind of knocked it out of the water when it comes to career readiness. And the district actually focuses a lot on clusters and pathways in future planning. So career knowledge is infused directly into their school curriculum. So it's just a way of life for them. And by the time the students are reaching early high school, so 9th and 10th grade, they're building their course schedules, aligning with their career pathways of interest. And then the careers program at the district involves the entire school, and then it even goes into the community. So with specific career focus nights throughout the year, as well as some intensive coordination among teachers and counselors and administrators within the district, students are getting the opportunity to explore and refine and even connect with their with professionals that are in their future interests. And Marla actually put a link to more information about 214 within the chat. So feel free to follow that or save that for later if you'd like. Okay, so I wanted to wrap up the presentation portion of this by talking a little bit about what we can do moving forward. So how do we wrap all of this, all of these trends up, both the post-COVID trends, the pre-COVID trends, and how do we make something of that and really try to catch students up and not let them fall behind during this time of distance learning. So first, I wanted to talk about maximizing assessment. So when you can use online tools like assessment, so interest inventories, career assessments, career interest profiler we have in Naviance, and strengths explorers, and those are all fairly self-paced, and students can dig in, do it on their own time, at their own pace, and really understand who they are and set the stage for career exploration. They can also, I think, most of the assessments, at least the ones in Naviance, have quite a bit of information that come along with it once they complete that assessment. So it's something that's great to reflect on in an activity, an online chat board, or even with their parents, and really explore their own interests and strengths, and then begin to dig into why and how those connect with their outside career path. If you do use Naviance, I think it's great to assign these assessments in Success Planner, to follow up with surveys or anything like that. The second takeaway or hint that I have would be to involve teachers. I know teachers are busy, but definitely try to involve them in the conversation. I would say, if you can have them insert a conversation thread into their classes, or you could even have a career themed day where teachers are sharing how they got to their own career path. You could do that, or even ask them to collaborate on assignments that incorporate their subject. So if they're a math teacher or a business teacher, how can they turn that into a career activity and really focus on the careers that understanding that subject might lead to. The third point would be to use a self-paced curriculum to help shape the experience for students. A lot of times you, as if you're a counselor, get to be in a classroom, right? You get to have scheduled times that you're in classrooms, and that's not even necessarily an option right now for a lot of you. So any sort of self-guided, self-paced curriculum is great and important to have. Of course, I'm definitely partial to the College Career and Life Readiness online curriculum that we offer through Naviance. But the goal really is to allow students to have a guided experience to help them stay on track. Something that's holistic and begins to connect the dots between student interests and their career path, and even the education that comes into play is really, really helpful. The next one, I think I touched on a couple of times, but don't be afraid to send some talking points home to parents to get them involved. As we saw, they're definitely having these conversations at home, and they're bringing up the topic. So if you can help parents guide that conversation a little bit more, team up with them, and share some talking points and hints and suggestions. You could assign an activity, but I think that parents are eager to get involved. Many parents are eager to get involved, even though they're busy during the day. But I think that connection point allows them to get to know their students better. It allows them to share their experience, and it's something that they can definitely do. So get those parents involved. And then finally, get creative. So if these past 7 months have shown us anything, it's that educators know how to pivot. So have some fun contests, or host a career fair online, or you could even expand how you're using technology. I think this is a great time to be able to beta test a whole bunch of different experiences and see what works and see what students are engaged in. And what you're doing now, you'll be able to learn from and bring into the classroom and the school at a later time. So this is just a highlight of Chehalis School District, and I mentioned the curriculum earlier, but they have the Naviance curriculum that they're using in their school district, and it really helps them to have some conversations around the workflow when it comes to preparing for life, really. So all of the college, career, and life readiness topics that they need to level the playing field for all students, whether they're first generation or not, and get prepared to set those future goals. So we have that story as well, and we can drop that into the chat. It's a great way to set it up. So just before we jump into the Q&A, I wanted to just go through those themes that we talked about, so that you can take it with you. So make sure you're starting with strengths and interests of students when it comes to career planning. We saw that that's helpful. We saw that students are really connecting their strengths and their interests with their future goals, and they know what they want to start exploring. So help to shape that experience and really get them involved in the conversation. Connect career instruction and post-secondary data. So career readiness doesn't just stop at defining a career. It's really digging into those careers and understanding what's happening and what the pathway is educationally. So even if a student doesn't want to go through graduate school, maybe they can explore other careers in a cluster. So the more you can open doors for students or help them open doors for themselves, the more you can help them explore and really form a future that that's good for them, fits them best. And finally, get creative. So use technology as much as you can, get people involved in the conversation, and just keep moving forward. I think that it's hard to see the appreciation that students and parents have for you, especially if you're in student services or a counselor. But I know that as a parent myself, we really appreciate any information that we're getting, and any facilitation in the area of career and college and future readiness. So thank you so much for joining us today. I am going to turn it back over to Stephen for the Q&A. And as we're doing that, I know Marla, my colleague, would love me to remind you that we have a feedback form that she'll drop in the chat, and if you can fill that out, that would be great. But let's leave plenty of time for the Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Opel. This is for all your insights. This has been really illuminating for sure. So as you said, we do have some time for a Q&A session where Dr. Opel will answer any questions you may have. So for those of you who have not yet submitted a question, please do so now by submitting your question in the Q&A panel. which should be located below what is the chat panel at the bottom of your screen. So let's see what we have here. So earlier on in the presentation, one of our participants was asking, how does access correlate to impact?
How does access correlate to impact? So I think that access maybe in a couple of different ways, and it can be defined maybe as student access to technology, student access to lessons, and that I think is where we have to circle back on our creativity. Definitely access correlates to impact, and the more students have access to resources, the more knowledge they'll have about moving forward and finding the right fit and match for them. So even if they have limited use of technology, get creative by sending home some talking points, or get creative by making connections with people who are in the community that are in a career field that they're interested in. So definitely have to work hard to create some opportunities for students who have less access, but now's the time to really make sure that we're seeking out those students and helping them along.
Perfect. Let's see here. Someone asked earlier on how many students were surveyed and what was the demographic?
Yeah, so we the surveys that we discussed, we had two different surveys. One was our pre-COVID survey, and that we accessed over 10,000 students who are in Naviance, and that was grades 6 through 12. Our second survey was our, I shouldn't call it our post-COVID survey because it's our we're in the middle of it still, but this was a survey that was done just in the past 2 weeks. And for that, we had a little over 3,000 students in grades 6 through 12 as well.
Perfect. Thank you. So another one of our participants, they mentioned at their institution, they get so focused on the prestige of the school rather than where it will lead them. So they were asking, how do they change the student focus to careers rather than college?
That is a great a great question. And something that I grapple with all the time. And I think it's really a culture change. And sometimes it has to start with parents. When I was a school counselor, I would try to set the stage early on that education, in my mind, really is a means to career. So if students can define a career pathway and then really focus in on the fit and the match of the school. So how does that school fit academically with their grades and their abilities, and how does that what type of school matches their desires? So what if they want to stay close to home, or what makes them most comfortable, where will they thrive best? And if you start with those conversations instead of bringing out a rankings guide right away, then you can start to make it a culture of fit and match around career interests instead of just a popularity contest. So that's what I love actually about Naviance, is that there's a really big focus on fit and match, and we have some really in-depth searches and matching opportunities for students that help them think outside the box. So if they're thinking of a school that, sometimes students only know a handful of schools, and they've only heard of the popular ones because of sports or something like that. But by digging in and defining what's right for them, they can sometimes find some great opportunities that are affordable and somewhere that they'll thrive at.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Another one is asking for strategies for getting students to access materials on their own, since this particular district, they don't have advisory, or only they get in to teach one career lesson a year.
Right.
Creative online ideas.
The $1 million question. Again, I think it's a culture shift for students, but also for schools as a whole. So I mentioned earlier getting teachers involved and joining teams with the teachers to discuss career opportunities around their subject matter. To have a career day where they're sharing how they got along their pathway. It could be having them assign assignments that they're accountable for. But I've also seen a lot of schools, especially our Naviance schools, making Naviance kind of the culture. So they'll post announcements in Naviance. They'll make things available only in Naviance. So they vote for their student council members on Naviance. They find their scholarships, as I mentioned. They complete their graduation surveys. So everything is kind of directed to Naviance. And once students get in there, then they're more prompted to kind of dig around and see what's available. So maybe they'll do a college search or look into a career cluster. And once they start clicking on those things, then they start getting more and more interested. So if you can help them explore what's there, again, communicating with parents what they have available. I know, and sometimes it's more than once that parents need to hear things, but if they have their own talking points and activities that they can do at home with their students, then sometimes that's a good way to get them involved as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question that came in, they were asking about adding career readiness to the curriculum. So in a way where every teacher is doing some career readiness, or so that's not too much to expect.
Yeah, I think if you have some quick and easy ways of allowing career readiness to suggested into the curriculum. So I know that there are a lot of schools that'll do resume writing in an English classroom. They'll do a budget activity, a career, a future budgeting activity in math class. They'll do essay writing, reflections in maybe social studies classes. So there are a lot of different ways that you can think about just connecting careers to the subject matter in a way that's not going to completely take over a classroom lesson, but it's going to facilitate and allow that instructor to provide their own input and their own experiences into a classroom setting that students can feel accountable for, and also get some future readiness activities about that. And I'd love to hear that more too in the chat if anyone has any other ideas on inserting careers into classroom activities.
Perfect. So another attendee mentioned that they're hybrid and class time is severely limited. This person also doesn't have access to classes. So how can this person best promote the use of Naviance?
That's a great question too. So hybrid has its benefits and drawbacks, and that one-to-one at classroom time definitely I see is very hot commodity, very valuable for our teachers. And I think if Naviance is great, and it's been we've seen an uptick lately over during COVID because it allows students to do a lot virtually in a virtual environment. So it's automatically designed already to allow students to do things virtually. So if you can assign lessons through Success Planner, and you can do check-in surveys. I think as school counselors too, it's important to stay at the forefront of students' mental health. So we've seen a lot of people do surveys, just checking in on mental health, but assign activities to students and see what happens. Like I think students are interested in these things. I think they're looking to connect with you, and they're looking to really develop themselves. So sometimes we'd be surprised of the things that students will do if even if there isn't a grade correlated with it.
Perfect, thanks. And before I ask the next question, I just wanted to let everyone know that we still have some time. So if you haven't submitted any questions and you would like them answered, please do so by submitting them into the Q&A panel, which is below the chat. And of course, if we're unable to get to your questions during this web seminar, I'm sure that Dr. Opelt will reach out to anyone who would like further information. So another question that came in is, can you suggest some ways for family engagement and this would be on the high school level. So at their district, most of their students feel they are on their own once they turn 18 with a driver's license and a job.
Yes. So I have been observing quite a bit of this during the pandemic and even before, but I think families at the high school level just number one, they want to know what's happening. So even though, you know, we want students to be adults and take control over their own future, and, you know, students want to do that too, parents definitely want to stay involved in the process. And it's important to, I think, communicate with them often during this time. I think, especially with all of the ins and, you know, the communications coming and people working full time, but having their students home. I think it's important to communicate often, but then also bring in some activities for your parents. So within Naviance, we see some parent surveys happening. So counselors or schools will pass out a survey for parents. Just to it can be a brag sheet that helps them reflect on, you know, their students' best qualities or their activities. It could be a guide to help, a guided conversation. So just some talking points to have with students and some brainstorms. It could be something on how they got to the career that they were at. Could be to reflect on their college experience. So, but just by communicating often, making sure that parents understand what's happening. We also see a lot of success with within Naviance in getting parents into Naviance, so they can have their own account. They can get in there and kind of explore colleges, and that allows them to have more and careers, I guess, and it allows them to have more educated conversations with their students. So especially if they didn't go to college themselves and their students are planning to go to college, let them get in there and dig and make them an informed partner in the path to the student's future, and that'll just really help them to you know, have trust and be a partner in this whole journey.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So this next question, participant was asking about one of the statistics from your report, specifically top career clusters.
Yeah.
They were wondering, you know, why you think, you know, top career clusters haven't changed in the past 6 years. Do you maybe think that the trend will change moving forward?
That's a great question. I was very surprised when I saw that as well, that things didn't really change. And, you know, the numbers definitely changed of how many students had that on their list and things like that. But the order of popularity didn't change. And I think there are some careers that are just staples because they're familiar, especially when you are asking students these questions. So, you know, if we're having them put careers on their list and they're in 6th or 7th grade, maybe they're not exploring as deeply as they should. So I think there's definitely a chance for the trend to evolve over time. I think that that as many obstacles as COVID has placed in our pathway, I think it's given students the chance to explore and see, you know, and get very familiar with technology, for example. So, you know, maybe those STEM careers will float higher to the top. Maybe medicine will float higher to the top. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, how so many of these numbers evolve over the next few years. Especially another indicator I'm thinking is the college search topics. So see if those evolve too, and if students are looking for more location or more affordable schools or even online experiences. So it should be interesting to see the future.
Perfect. Thanks. So another attendee brought up some of their research that they found at their school district. So basically, their research is suggesting that most of their college-bound graduates change their major at least once. And knowing that, they're wondering, what does this say about their career planning initiatives?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a pretty consistent number too of across the board is that that a lot of students do change their mind once they get to college. I think it's a reflection of the opportunities that they see available, but it's also a reflection perhaps of the predispositions that they're going into college with. I know that there are a lot of expectations and maybe sometimes students aren't as focused on the fit and the match for themselves when it comes to career, and more focused maybe on the prestige of the career or the salary of the career, or just maybe it's something that's familiar and they've heard about. So if we can start, as I mentioned a few times, if we can start by helping students to define who they are and what they enjoy and what their strengths are, then we can begin to really help them dig into what careers are available. Maybe it's not something that they've heard about before. Maybe it's not something that they would ever consider before. Maybe it's something that their parents wouldn't consider for them. But if we can help them to, refine a good list, then we can really help them go in informed. I don't think that, anything will stop the trend of people changing majors just because it is easy to see, a lot of what's out there once you get there. And but if we can help them be prepared and informed and ready to go, then at least we can get them into the right direction. And if they do change their mind, they're at least in the right place, and it won't be a huge change for them.
Perfect. Thank you. So this
Absolutely.
next,
Let me
oh,
just let me just add on to that, because Caroline just made a really good point, and I think that there is she said that it's not a failure to change your mind, and there's something to a growth mindset and allowing students to feel like they can make a change and they can change their mind and be open to that is that's a really good quality and something that we should instill in middle school and high school.
perfect. So this next question, they're asking about conversations with immigrant families. So basically, do you have any recommendations, for people, navigating conversations about colleges and careers with immigrant families, where, as this person noted, where academic expectations are much higher than how their students perform, and college is the only option. So, what do
Yeah.
you recommend?
Yeah,
Recommendations?
absolutely. And I think, across the board, we we want to have frank, gentle conversations with students who are from families of immigrants, and it's important to get, again, I think I just keep going back to this parent piece, but it's important to involve them in the conversations and be a student advocate in these times. So I think sometimes I remember I worked at a high school with a high immigrant population, and we did a lot of family meetings, and we had we had a lot of students peer groups. So it was just making sure that student expectations, student ability, student fit and match was all part of the conversation from the very beginning, and that that parents were a partnership in the future pathway planning, but students were also a voice in that. So sometimes we had to be, sometimes you have to be more of a student voice with parents, and it's tough, but it's really important that students are, making that right fit so that they succeed once they, if they go to college, if they succeed when they're there, or if they choose to go, to a certificate program, that they're really choosing a career and a future that that fits their goals.
Definitely. Thank you again. Another question. So this attendee mentioned, that Naviance, it's primarily geared to college-bound students. And with that in mind, they're wondering what resources are available for those students that intend to join the workforce after high school.
Absolutely. So Naviance has a pretty robust career planning platform, and it's only going to be getting better. So stay tuned. There are going to be a lot of opportunities for schools to connect with their students on workforce initiatives, on internships, on job shadows, just a whole bunch of different learning experiences for students who may be going straight to a career. And then also, right now, if they dig into our Road Trip Nation archive, if they look into our assessments, all of those can help guide students in the right direction, whether that is, whether that's your college, 2-year college certificate, or straight into career.
Perfect, thanks. So another question that came in, they were asking if you could elaborate a little bit more about job market projections so students can think about opportunity and their pathways, or are there any other surveys that Naviance has done that goes into that in more detail?
Yep, I do believe, I'm not going to be, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that there are some projections that we have from ONET in Naviance that allow students to see those projections of the job market in their area. I would, suggest also connecting with local workforce. There are quite a few initiatives right now locally where the workforce departments are really wanting students to stick around, and they'll do a lot with those students to help to develop that. So I know that I saw some chatter in the chat that Naviance, they don't have funding or something like that, but workforce is a great place to get funding for technology, for curriculum, for even a field trip. A lot of times those industries in your area will fund those pieces just so students are prepared and getting the information that they need to build a good workforce in their own area.
Perfect. So someone else was asking if you have any suggestions for advising students who are intellectually disabled.
Absolutely. So we have, I think the career exploration is a great place. I think that the Road Trip Nation archive, again, going back to that, is a great place to start. I think Strengths Explorer is an outstanding resource, even if it's an assessment where an adult helps them go through it or read through it. If a student can understand what their strengths are, it just really motivates them and makes them see, who they are to the core, and helps them to build on those strengths instead of always pointing out what's wrong. So Strengths Explorer has some in the results, just some good pointers on how to develop strengths and how to use your strengths in your community. So I would start with that, and start with Road Trip Nation, and just help students to see the potential that comes with who they are.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question. So even though won't be able to get to all of your questions today, just note that I'm sure that Naviance will reach out to you if you have any further questions in the future. But at this moment, we have one more question that we can go over right now. This person was asking if you could provide or elaborate a little bit about the military in Naviance, and if you're able to, like, explaining the three main channels of the military.
Yeah, so military options are listed in Naviance. We definitely have, the career pathways that you can go into while you're in the military or outside the military. We also allow for places to add your own information in. So if you have have a recruiter coming, you can add that into the visits area. So you can promote that either, virtual visit, or if it's an in-person visit, you can definitely help students there. Again, I would point to surveys. The Road Trip Nation archive has a lot of information on kind of leaders or adults that have gone into military pathways and things like that. So that's where I would start with that.
Perfect. So like as I said, it's the top of the hour now. So I would just like to, close by saying, thank you again, Dr. Opel, for your insights. We at DA, we really appreciate your time here, sharing your experiences with us, and our audience does appreciate it as well, for sure. And with that, I'd also like to thank our attendees for joining us today. For those who enjoyed our presentation, there are many more upcoming web seminars like this one that are provided by us at District Administration, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, trends, as well as current issues in K through 12. At District Administration, our wide range of readers subscribe for free to District Administration, and they stay up to date with us through our print magazine, as well as the digital edition of the magazine, our newsletters, and through our web seminars like this one. And for those of you who would like to watch this web seminar again, or for those of you who believe that all the solutions provided in this web seminar would be helpful to your colleagues, you will be pleased to note that there is an archive recording of this web seminar that will be available at the URL, which you can see on your screen here. You can also expect to receive an email from our team at some point tomorrow, which will include a link to all of the slides, which I know many of our attendees today were asking for. So that's good news for you. So with that, on behalf of District Administration, this is Stephen Blackburn. Thanks, everyone. Have a great school year. Stay safe and take care. Thank you very much.